we haven't been here before. Article 50 has never been triggered before. This is a day that nobody wanted, really, but we have to deal with the reality of the consequences of the vote of the people of the United Kingdom. So the negotiations are now going to start. The process will be, the Prime Minister has triggered Article 50 before the end of March, as she said she would. The European Council will respond, will issue draft guidelines for decision by the European Council on the 29th of April. From my point of view, clearly the discussions that I have had with the Prime Minister directly on a number of occasions are reflected in her letter in respect of the special relationship that Britain has with Ireland, the necessity to protect the peace process, the Good Friday Agreement and all that flows from that. The European Parliament have issued their statement reflecting those values and principles and priorities also. So my focus now is on having the European Council recognise the importance of the priority issues for Ireland. How will that play out for the people of Ireland? Well, these are going to be challenging negotiations, but we will negotiate from the European point of view, as one of the 27, from a position of strength. We will also negotiate in a spirit of positivity and optimism, because Britain themselves have said they don't want to do anything to harm the issues that are important for Ireland.
But how can you say that we'll be negotiating from a position of strength, given that we are just one among 27?
Well, we are an important one among 27. Everybody at the European leadership level knows that the only land border within the European Union will run from Dundalk to Derry. We're not going to have a return to that traditional border. They also understand that it's the only peace process which they contribute to in terms of substantial monies for fragile peace entities on the island of Ireland. So everybody at a European level knows this, and the economic reports indicated that of all the countries to be adversely affected by a hard Brexit, Ireland would be most affected.
I think everybody accepts there won't be a return to the borders of the past. Nobody would quibble with that. But if the UK is outside the customs union, there'll be some kind of border. How do you envisage that?
Well, I've said that the issue of the traditional border was one that brought with it sectarian violence, and we're not going there. So this is a political challenge. It's not an issue that's going to be led by technology, and it does require creativity and imagination to deal with it. And that's something that I discussed with the Prime Minister directly in Brussels. So the best minds in Ireland and in Britain are going to have to deal with this. This is a consequence of the UK vote, and it's one that we must deal with, but deal with it in a creative and an imaginative way.
But there is obviously no clear picture. So I return to the earlier question. What assurances can you give people that at the end of this long road we won't be worse off?
Well, as I say, we fully understand that there are going to be changes and implications because of the decision of the UK to leave the European Union. But the trading element is one that, in my view, will run for a number of years. And clearly what Britain wants is the closest possible relationship with the European Union. We support that. But in the trading issues to be decided, there are big players in that field. Obviously, we don't want anything to damage the trading links that we have with Britain, but we want to secure our place as a member of the European Union for the future. And that's all part of the complicated negotiations that are now going to commence once the European Council respond to the Prime Minister's letter.
Donald Tusk has clearly indicated that, shall we call them, the divorce proceedings are going to take precedence over trade negotiations. Are you happy with that, and does that imply that this is going to take a lot longer than 2 years?
Well, I think it's going to take longer than 2 years. Article 50 says you must conclude your divorce proceedings inside 2 years unless you get an extension of time which would be granted. But trading relationships are of critical importance for every family in Europe, and indeed with global implications. In my view, they will run for quite a period beyond the 2 years, so there will be a need for a transition arrangement.
The opposition say that you're not well organised, that the government lacks focus, and that the response to this challenge over the last 9 months has been too diffuse. What do you say?
They're wrong. We've been preparing for this even since before the British referendum. We've had very extensive discussions in Brussels, in London, in Belfast. All Ireland Civic Fora looking for the voices from Northern Ireland in a leadership sense as well. We're very well prepared for this, and before the 29th of April the government will publish a detailed document setting out to a far greater extent our priorities and objectives and how we intend to get there.
If somebody said to you that we're just out of the worst recession most people can remember, and, if you like, it's out of the frying pan back into the fire. What would you say to them?
Well, I'd prefer not to have to deal with Brexit, but the agenda for Europe is one for the future of peace, prosperity, opportunity, job creation, investment and so on. And this is an incident that has happened along the way. It's a very serious incident, but we've got to deal with it. And just as we've managed to take our country out of a very deep recession to a point where we're the fastest growing in Europe now for fourth year running, and we will also deal with this as part of the European family of 27. And we want to deal with the United Kingdom in a constructive and a positive and optimistic fashion. And I'm glad to see that from my own discussions with many leaders, there is not a sort of punishment regime coming from the European Council here.